You ever buy a brand new computer or, like a smartphone, and before you even download a single thing, it's just already packed full of software you never actually asked for?
Oh, right. The infamous bloatware.
Yeah, exactly. You turn it on, and there are these hidden background programs just sort of quietly sitting there, eating up your processing power and draining your battery before your day even begins.
And you can't easily uninstall them either, which is the crazy part. Yet, they dictate how the interface behaves, they take up crucial memory, and they basically completely shape your day-to-day experience of the device, all without your explicit permission.
Well, welcome to the deep dive. Because today, we are hacking the ultimate human operating system using the hidden programming uncovered in Don Miguel Ruiz's massively influential book, The Four Agreements.
Such a foundational text.
It really is. So our mission today is to figure out why you and I are so often our own worst critics, how this unasked for bloatware gets installed in our minds in the first place, and really how to discover the literal magic we wield every single day without realizing it.
Right. And to truly grasp the architecture of this human operating system, we kind of have to start by establishing where this framework actually comes from.
Okay. Set the stage for us.
So the concepts in this text are rooted in the knowledge of the Toltec of ancient southern Mexico. Now, historically, they're often described simply as a nation or a race, but the author clarifies that they were actually this highly organized society of scientists and artists.
Oh, interesting. So it's less of a traditional empire and maybe more of a massive research university for the soul.
Yeah, that is a very accurate way to frame it, actually. They came together as masters, which they called naguals, and students at Teotihuacan.
That's the ancient city of pyramids, right?
Exactly, just outside modern Mexico City, the place where man becomes God. But they weren't just building monuments there. They were intensely mapping human perception.
Wow.
Yeah, long before modern psychology or cognitive behavioral therapy ever existed, the Toltec were studying the mechanics of the mind, specifically how our beliefs construct the reality we experience.
But it's not like you learn about Toltec cognitive therapy in school.
No, because of conquests and, just the general misuse of power over the centuries, this esoteric science had to be hidden. It was passed down in secret lineages, which is how it eventually reached the author.
That context just completely shifts how you approach the text.
And it really does.
It takes it out of the realm of, generic self-help and puts it into the realm of ancient neuroscience. But before we can talk about how to rewrite the code of our reality, we have to define what this reality actually is.
And the text does this beautifully, honestly. It opens with this story from 3,000 years ago. It's about a human, just like anyone listening, who was studying to become a medicine man.
Okay.
So one night, he is sleeping in a cave, and he steps out into the cool air under a sky just filled with millions of stars. And suddenly, he has this profound, visceral realization.
Like an aha moment.
A massive one. He looks at his own hands, he feels his physical body, and he hears his own voice say, "I am made of light. I am made of stars."
Wow. That's a total paradigm shift in how he perceives matter.
Completely. He realizes in that moment that it is not the stars that create light, but rather light that creates the stars.
That's heavy.
Right. He sees that everything in existence is one living being, an energy you might call God, or life, or the universe. And all the physical stuff, the matter, is essentially just a mirror.
Just a mirror.
Yeah, everything is a mirror reflecting that singular light. But, and here's the catch between these mirrors, there's a fog, a sort of smoke.
And that smoke represents our distorted perception, right?
Yes, exactly. The smoke is the illusion. It is made up of the interpretations, the rigid rules, and the deeply held beliefs that keep us from seeing our true nature.
Which is pure light.
Pure light and connection. And this collective smoke, which is generated by billions of human interpretations interacting over thousands of years, is what the Toltec call the dream of the planet.
The dream of the planet.
Yeah. It is the overarching framework of society's rules, its laws, cultures, and religions.
Let me try an analogy here to ground this for you, the listener.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking, is this like being dropped into a massive multiplayer video game where the rules, the map, and the objectives were all coded long before we logged in?
That's a great way to look at it.
Like you spawn into a server as a level 1 character, and there are already warring factions, hard borders, a complex economy you have to participate in, and a very specific meta, like a way you're supposed to play if you want to survive.
The multiplayer game analogy works perfectly because it really highlights the pre-existing nature of the world. The server has been running for millennia before your specific character ever showed up.
Right. You didn't write the code?
You didn't design the map, and
Yeah.
you definitely didn't write the physics engine. And what's fascinating here is how the medicine man from the story dealt with this immense realization.
What did he do?
Well, he knew that as he walked back into his village, he was just going to forget this profound vision. The mundane reality of the game would pull him right back in.
Sure. Normal life takes over.
Exactly. So, to prevent himself from forgetting, he gave himself a new name. He called himself the Smoky Mirror,
A built-in reminder. That's smart.
a constant psychological anchor. He wanted to remember that the smoke is the dream, the illusion, the rigid rules of the game, and the mirror is the dreamer.
I see.
He was looking at himself in the faces of everyone else in the village, but the smoke in between their minds prevented them from recognizing each other as the same light.
Okay, so if this Dream of the Planet is a pre-existing game with billions of active players, how do those specific rules actually get downloaded into our individual level 1 brains?
That's the big question.
Because I certainly don't remember signing a terms of service agreement when I was an infant.
You didn't consciously sign anything, no. But you were subjected to an incredibly effective process the text calls hooking attention.
Hooking attention.
Yeah. When you arrive in the world as a child, your mind is remarkably malleable. The humans who came before you, so your parents, teachers, siblings, society at large, they introduce these rules into your mind by hooking your attention through repetition.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Think about the basics. You didn't choose your native language, right? You didn't choose your family's religion, your society's moral values, or, even your own name.
It's true. All of that was assigned and installed way before I had the cognitive ability to object to any of it.
And the only way this information permanently stores itself in your mind's hard drive is if you agree to it. A belief only takes root through agreement. The text calls this entire overarching process the domestication of humans.
Okay, wait, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because domestication, are you saying human children are trained exactly like we train a dog or a cat to fetch a ball or stay off the living room couch?
It sounds harsh, but...
Because human learning feels infinitely more complex than basic animal training, right?
Yeah.
We have critical thinking, abstract thought, philosophy.
I hear you. The content of what we learn is absolutely more complex. It involves abstract philosophy and highly nuanced social dynamics. However, the fundamental behavioral mechanism is identical.
Really, identical.
Yes, we are highly social animals. Historically, our survival depended entirely on staying within the pack. A child abandoned by the tribe just does not survive.
Right, that makes sense.
Therefore, seeking the reward of love and attention and avoiding the punishment of rejection, well, those aren't just preferences. They are primal, literal, life or death drives.
So we are domesticated through a deeply ingrained system of rewards and punishments.
Yes. When we do what mom and dad or the teacher or the church wants us to do, we receive a reward. Usually in the form of attention, praise, or physical affection. We are told we are a good boy or a good girl.
And then we don't.
When we break the rules, the reward is withheld. Or worse, we are actively punished and shamed. Over time, the fear of not getting the reward, which is essentially the terrifying fear of being rejected by the pack, becomes so overwhelming that we start modifying our behavior.
We trade our authenticity for safety.
Exactly.
Figure out what the pack wants us to be, and we just start playing that character.
We put on a mask. We pretend to be what we are not, simply to please others and ensure we aren't cast out. And here is the real tragedy of this domestication process.
What is it?
Eventually, the parents, the teachers, and the religious leaders don't even need to be in the room anymore.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the programming becomes self-sustaining. We become so thoroughly trained that we turn into our own auto-domesticators.
We basically install the bloatware permanently.
Precisely. And this internal system operates through three main components. First, we develop an internal book of law.
Book of law. Got it.
This book contains every single rule, assumption, and agreement we've ever made about how the world works and who we are supposed to be. Second, we develop an inner judge.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, the judge uses the book of law to constantly evaluate everything we do, everything we think, and everything we feel. And third, we develop an inner victim.
So the victim is on the receiving end.
Exactly. The victim is the part of us that carries the blame, the guilt, and the shame every single time the judge flips through the book of law and finds us guilty of falling short.
Man, if we're constantly chasing an impossible image built from all these conflicting inherited rules, the mental friction must be just exhausting. I imagine that's where the chronic anxiety, the imposter syndrome, and the endless self-punishment comes from.
You've just described the exact psychological result of this programming. The Toltec actually have a specific word for this chaotic, day-to-day state of mind. They call it the mitot.
The Mikot.
Yeah. Conceptually, it's very similar to the Indian concept of Maya, or illusion. Imagine your mind as a crowded marketplace or a dream where 1,000 different voices are all shouting at exactly the same time.
That sounds overwhelming.
It is, and none of them understand each other. That chaotic noise is the mitot.
1,000 voices all shouting contradictory lies from the Book of Law. Like, you should be working harder, but you also need to rest. Or you need to be more aggressive to succeed, but you also need to be universally liked.
Yes.
It creates an absolutely impossible standard.
It creates what the author calls an image of perfection. We build this idealized fantasy of how we should be in order to be accepted by absolutely everybody.
Which is impossible.
Completely. Because this image is entirely fabricated from conflicting external rules, it's structurally unsound. It is not real. Therefore, we can never, ever live up to it.
Which means we are setting ourselves up for a lifetime of failing our own internal audits.
And the consequence of that failure is severe self-rejection. The text points out a staggering observation about human psychology here. Humans are the only animals on Earth that pay for a single mistake thousands of times.
Wait, thousands of times? Walk me through the mechanics of that.
It comes down to our capacity for complex memory. If a dog makes a mistake, say it chews up a shoe, it gets scolded.
Right, bad dog.
It feels the immediate correction, and then a few minutes later, it moves on. It goes back to wagging its tail and living in the present.
Sounds nice.
But a human, we make a mistake. We judge ourselves, we find ourselves guilty, and we administer emotional punishment. But it doesn't end there.
Because we remember it.
Exactly. A week later, we're lying in bed, and we remember the mistake. So the inner judge convenes again, reads the charge, finds us guilty again, and the victim suffers the exact same shame again.
Oh, man.
10 years later, a random smell or conversation triggers the memory. Same trial, same punishment.
It's like having a rigged courtroom in our head where double jeopardy is perfectly legal. We commit a minor crime once, but the inner judge sentences us to life, pulling us back into the courtroom to retry the case every single time the memory surfaces.
That analogy captures the exhaustion of the human experience perfectly. And, this internal courtroom doesn't just dictate how we treat ourselves, it dictates our external relationships, too.
How so?
The text argues a very profound point here. We only tolerate abuse from other people up to the exact limit of how much we abuse ourselves.
Wow. That implies our internal baseline sets the ceiling for what we accept from the outside world.
Precisely. If someone comes along and abuses you a little more than you abuse yourself, your internal alarm bells ring and you will likely walk away.
Because it violates the baseline.
Right. But if they abuse you a little less than your inner judge abuses you daily, you'll stay. You will tolerate it, rationalize it, and accept it because your internal book of law has already convinced you, I deserve this.
That is heavy. But look, if we were walking around in a rigged courtroom punishing ourselves infinitely, trapped by a book of law we didn't even write, there has to be a way to object or overrule that judge. How do we rewrite the code and reclaim our personal power?
This brings us to the core solution of the text. Don Miguel Ruiz introduces the first agreement.
Okay, let's hear it.
He states it is the most important one to make and also the most difficult to continuously honor. The first agreement is, be impeccable with your word.
Be impeccable with your word. On the surface, that just sounds like a standard moral platitude, like don't lie, keep your promises, say what you mean.
It does sound like that at first glance.
But knowing the Toltec focus on perception and reality,
Right.
This has to go way deeper than just basic honesty.
Oh, it goes down to the very foundation of creation. The text describes the word not just as a sound you make or a written symbol on a page. The word is pure magic.
Pure magic.
Yes, it is the literal power you have to express yourself, to communicate, to think, and thereby create the events in your life. It is the most powerful tool you have as a human, but it is a two-edged sword.
How so?
On one side, the impeccability of the word can create incredible beauty and a personal heaven on earth. On the other side, the misuse of the word is described literally as black magic.
When you say black magic, it sort of evokes images of casting spells or hexes on people.
Well, the author uses that exact framing. When we misuse our words, we are casting spells.
Literally.
Literally. To illustrate the catastrophic scale of this black magic, the text points to a chilling historical example, Adolf Hitler.
Okay.
He didn't initially conquer by physical force. He used the word. He used speeches to plant seeds of intense fear, hatred, and doubt.
He manipulated the mitote.
Exactly. By expertly wielding the destructive power of the word, he manipulated the collective fear and confusion of a highly intelligent country into committing atrocious acts of violence and triggering a global war. That is the terrifying potential of the word used as black magic.
So the word is a seed, and the human mind is intensely fertile ground. It just depends on what kind of seeds you are constantly planting.
That is beautifully said.
Let's look at the specific phrasing of the agreement, specifically the word impeccable. We typically use that to mean flawless, right? Like an impeccable suit or an impeccable performance. What is the working definition here?
The etymology of the word reveals its true psychological meaning. Impeccable comes from the Latin word peccatus, which translates to sin, and the prefix im, which means without.
So without sin.
Right. Impeccable literally translates to without sin.
But sin is a heavily loaded, often religious term that carries a lot of baggage for people.
It does, which is exactly why the Toltecs strip away the religious dogma and redefine it practically. In this framework, a sin is simply anything you do which goes against yourself.
Anything against yourself.
Yes, everything you feel, believe, or say that goes against yourself is a sin. Therefore, being impeccable means taking absolute responsibility for your actions, but completely refusing to judge or blame yourself. Self-rejection is the ultimate sin.
Okay, wait. If being impeccable means not going against myself, how does insulting or gossiping about someone else hurt me? Doesn't that just inflict damage on the other person?
That assumption stems from the illusion of separation created by the smoke we talked about earlier.
Oh, right. The smoky mirror.
Exactly. The text explains the mechanics of this beautifully. If I see you in the street and I call you stupid, it appears on the surface that I'm using the word against you. But energetically, if I get angry and send emotional poison your way, you are naturally going to feel hostility toward me.
Yeah, I'd probably be pretty mad.
Right. And your hostility and hatred are not good for me. They create a hostile environment that harms my peace of mind. So by cursing you, I am actually setting a chain of events into motion that uses the word against myself.
Wow. It's an energetic boomerang. You throw out poison, and the aerodynamics of human interaction pretty much guarantee it swings back to hit you in the back of the head.
That's spot on. Being impeccable with your word is the correct, efficient use of your energy. It is directing your energy strictly toward truth and love for yourself, which naturally extends outward to others.
To make this abstract concept of black magic highly practical, let's look at how this plays out in mundane, everyday interactions. Because most of us aren't out there inciting global conflicts, but we are sitting in traffic, snapping at our partners, and navigating office politics.
Exactly.
We're casting smaller spells all the time.
We are constantly casting spells without realizing it. The text shares a deeply relatable, heartbreaking story to illustrate this mundane black magic.
What's this story?
There was a mother who was intelligent and had a very good heart. She absolutely adored her young daughter. But one evening, the mother comes home from work completely exhausted. She is carrying a massive amount of emotional tension from the day and is suffering from a terrible pounding headache.
Her internal resources are completely depleted. Her tolerance is at absolute zero.
Exactly. Meanwhile, her little daughter is having a fantastic day. She's in her own joyful dream, jumping around the living room happily, singing louder and louder.
And the mother has a headache.
Right. The piercing noise makes the mother's headache exponentially worse. Finally, in a split second of lost control, the mother snaps. She looks at her daughter and yells, "Shut up! You have an ugly voice. Can you just shut up?"
Oh, man.
Mm-hmm.
That is brutal.
Now, objectively, what is the truth of that situation? The truth is just that the mother had zero physical tolerance for noise in that specific moment.
It had nothing to do with the kid's voice.
Nothing at all. But the child didn't know that. The child looked at someone she completely trusted as an authority on reality, and she heard the word. She formed an agreement in her mind.
She believed it.
She believed the lie. And after that day, she never sang again.
She internalized an offhand, exhausted comment as an immutable law of the universe.
She became shy at school. She repressed her natural emotions, all because she wanted to ensure she would be accepted and loved. A well-meaning mother who simply didn't realize the sheer power of her own words cast a spell of black magic that altered the entire psychological trajectory of her child's life.
That really forces you to evaluate every careless, frustrated comment you've ever casually thrown at someone.
That really does.
But the text also points out that we don't just cast these spells accidentally when we are tired, right? We have actually built a formalized, socially acceptable system for spreading this black magic daily.
You are referring to the mechanics of gossip?
Yes, gossip. It's the lifeblood of water coolers and group chats everywhere.
The author pulls no punches here. He calls gossip the worst form of black magic, pure emotional poison. And unfortunately, it has become the primary form of communication in human society.
Why do you think that is?
Because misery loves company. When we are suffering in our own internal mitote, in our own dream of hell, it brings a twisted sense of relief to pull someone else down into that fear and suffering with us. It normalizes our pain.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
The book uses a technology metaphor for gossip that perfectly explains how this poison actually functions.
Ah, the concept of the computer virus.
Right. So imagine you are starting a new class at a university with a new professor. You're feeling open and excited.
Sure.
But 5 minutes before you walk into the lecture hall, an older student pulls you aside and says, "Oh, you have that instructor. He is a pompous jerk. He grades unfairly, he doesn't know the material, and honestly, he's a bit of a creep, so watch your back."
Now, you have no idea what that older student's motivation is. Maybe they failed the class because they didn't study. Maybe they were projecting their own insecurity.
Right, you don't know the context.
But because our minds are domesticated to blindly ingest information from others, a part of you immediately agrees with it.
So gossiping is literally like someone handing you a USB drive loaded with malware. They plug it into your brain, download a virus into your operating system, and suddenly you can no longer see the professor clearly.
That captures the contagion perfectly. You
Yeah.
walk into that classroom, and you are no longer seeing the reality of the professor. You are looking at him entirely through the distorted lens of that downloaded poison.
You're infected.
Yes. You misinterpret his tone, you feel defensive when he asks a question, and natural communication breaks down entirely. Your mind's code gets so bogged down with these conflicting, hostile messages that your internal system slows down.
And then what happens?
And then to relieve your own anxious confusion, what do? You turn to the student sitting next to you and whisper the same rumor, spreading the virus further.
Man. So what does this all mean for us? We are born into a massive multiplayer game called the Dream of the Planet.
Right.
We are domesticated through a primal system of reward and punishment until we install an inner judge and a victim that endlessly torture us over our memories.
Which is the mitote.
Right, we wander around in this chaotic mitote, casting black magic spells on our children with careless frustrations, and we infect each other with USB malware gossip just to feel less alone in our confusion.
When you lay out all the mechanics like that, it highlights just how incredibly deep the programming goes.
It does. But the ultimate takeaway of this text is profoundly empowering.
Very much so.
Breaking the spell of this planetary dream requires an immense amount of courage and sustained personal power. But the exit door is real, and it is accessible.
It's right there.
By adopting just this first agreement, be impeccable with your word. You stop feeding the malware. You stop using your precious energy to attack yourself in that red courtroom.
You take your power back.
Exactly. By replacing the careless lies of black magic with the intentional truth of the impeccable word, you can clean up the emotional poison in your relationships. You take your processing power back, and you can literally rewrite your code, turning a chaotic dream of hell into a personal heaven on earth.
That is the immense promise of the first agreement. And as we conclude our deep dive today, I want to leave you, our listener, with a final thought to mull over that pushes this concept just a bit further into the future.
I love that. Let's hear it.
We've spent this time talking about the agreements we make with society, the malware we accept from others, and the judgments we pass on our past mistakes. But what about the silent agreements you are making with your future self?
Oh, that's a great question.
Tomorrow morning, when you wake up and start planning your day, ask yourself this. If your word is pure magic and every thought is a seed, what kind of spell are you currently casting on the person you will become 5 years from now? Are you writing code that will set them free, or are you just programming another cage?
Are you the dreamer designing a new world, or are you just staring into the smoke?
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We will catch you next time.